John Pontius on September the 17th, 2009, here with Elmer Heinley on his farm in Columbia Township, and I'm interviewing him for the Whitley County Oral History Project. Thank you very much for having us here, Elmer.
Well, thank you for coming.
Okay, how long have you been on this farm?
I've been on this farm for 92 years.
Now that must be all your life, right?
No, that's not all my life.
Okay.
I was 2 years old when I moved here. I'm going on 95.
Okay, where were you born?
I was born in Columbia City, and at the end of 6 months I moved to Taylor Station. My dad bought a farm out there, and I lived in Taylor Station in Hell's Half Acre.
Well, now, what is Hell's Half Acre?
Well, how long have you got?
all the time you want.
Well, now, if you want the history of this area, my grandfather, William Heinley, and his brother Henry Heinley came from Pennsylvania. They were Pennsylvania Dutch, brought their family to through Columbia City. Before the Civil War, Van Buren Street was a mud street, and the sidewalks were not cement, they were mud. He said the women's dresses drug in the mud as they walked down the street. Went out west of Columbia City 3 miles, a little better than 3 miles. Hell's Half Acre starts west of Columbia City at the Wolf Road that runs north and south, and goes over to 350 west. That area in there was is known as Hell's Half Acre, and that my dad left Columbia City and bought a farm. Just the first farm south of the old Pennsylvania Railroad, and Taylor Station, and then I'm the last living person that has their ancestors settled originally Hell's Half Acre, and I lived there till I was 2 years old. I've actually lived the same place that my ancestors had.
Why did they call it Hell's Half Acre?
Okay, this is after the Civil War. During the Civil War, the Helms. If you go back, you can get this in Whitley County history. The Helms family lived out in that area, and his mother taught school at the Hell's Half Acre schoolhouse, which is still standing on the Wolf Road, and it's been made into a house. And Howard deserted the army, and because his family lived here, he became he was a hunted man by the army. Jules Romey, which was Henry Romey and Albert Romey's dad, was an army officer that came into the area to try to find Howard Helms and capture him. And Howard Helms, because of all the things that happened in this area, they slurred it into Hell's Half Acre because it became a rough area. Howard Helms, as a young man, my grandmother, Heinley, fed him. He came out of the woods and he would feed him. One day he came to the house, Howard did, and said to my granddad, Heinley, said, "Bill, why didn't you take some of that stuff out of that box that you looked into in the woods?" Well, Bill says, my granddad said, I didn't know what that was. There was shoes and socks and other things in there, and I didn't know where it came from. Well, he said I stole it up in Columbus City, brought it out here and put it in a box so I'd have something to wear. And then Howard has got quite a history from this area. As a young man then, Jules Rome was after him. Howard lived in the woods and lived a nomad life, trying to stay away from being captured. Mm-hmm. And he one day, Krog Dowell, that's Elmer Dowell and Charlie Dowell's dad, lived in a log cabin where Rich Cricks live right now, down on 300, just at the end of the Dowell Road and a quarter of a mile to the left. He had I still remember the log house, and Krog was plowing in the field with a horse and walking plow, and Howard came up to him, and Krog said, "Howard, go up in the top of my cabin there and get a hide, because the army officers are here to get you." And he said he did, but the army officer saw it did, and so he went up and went in, started up the steps to go into the loft of that cabin. Howard went out the other end and went about, I'd say 40 rod to the south. There's a swamp there. The swamp's still there. And he said he went out in the swamp and got buried himself in a muskrat den. Mm-hmm. And this army officer walked over a tree that right above him, and Howard stuck his nose out of the water, and he told my granddad, he said, "I never come so close to drowning in all my life. I thought that guy was never going to get off of that tree." So Jules Roman didn't find him, and he left, and Howard got out of the muskrat hole in that swamp and took his clothes off and laid them on a rail fence to dry, and he was sitting there on the rail fence, and Jules came up to talk to the young man sitting there letting his clothes dry, and didn't realize it was Howard Helms. And so a day or so after that, Billy Mosier, which lived just north on 300 across the railroad track, had a barn dance. And neighbors came in, and Jules Romey came to the barn dance, and he said to Billy Mosier, he said, "Billy, who's that young man sitting over there?" "That's Howard Helms." And he said, "Jules left and never did anything with Howard Helms. He didn't capture him." But now, for the good part of Howard Helms, Howard left. And then in this interim, our preacher at the Everhart Church, which we belong to Everhart Church, preached a sermon against Howard Helms. And it wasn't within a week that his team of beautiful horses disappeared. Mm-hmm. And they said Howard Helms took them up in Michigan and sold them. And so Howard eventually ended up in Michigan and Wisconsin and became a sheriff, and got wounded and lost a leg in the line of duty. He did not end up bad in his whole lifetime. So that is the reason why this is called Hell's Half Acre. S.J. Peabody had his first sawmill right across the road from where I lived. Okay. And it was, you talk about why it was Hell's Half Acre. S.J. Peabody went to Columbus City to borrow some money to pay his men at the sawmill, and they were afraid to give it to him because they were afraid somebody would rob him before he got back to Taylor Station. And so that is, you asked me why, and that's it.
That's a great story.
That's it.
Why did your father move here?
Okay, and that's another story.
Okay.
This farm was bought by Lem Dorio, homesteaded under President Arthur. Mm-hmm. And he lived here, and my granddad lived down. My mother went to school at the Bash Hill Schoolhouse down by South Whitley. Okay. And Lem Dorio's son, Ransom Dorio, married Blanche Barnhill, my mother's sister, so we came related. Mm-hmm. And then when Lem Dorio retired, my granddad Barnhill bought this farm and from him. Mm-hmm. And he lived here, it was 40 acres. Mm-hmm. And he lived here until my dad then, he retired, and my dad bought it from my granddad. Okay. And then I bought it from my dad. And as far as I know, my grandson wants it eventually, and keep it in the family. And okay. So I've lived here. I moved here when I was 2 years old, and I'm 94 years old.
Is it the same house?
Same house, only it's that archway was double doors. We had a furnace in the floor furnace. That door was shut in the wintertime because we didn't heat this. Mm-hmm. And this was the bedroom. And Helen and I have remodeled this. This porch was put on 1929 mm-hmm. by my dad. And so originally the cellarway was in the, as you come in the door to your left, there's a door there. The cellarway was there. But that was before this part of the house, the east part of the house was added on to. And then the cellarway was put in the...
How old is the house about?
The barn was built, the wall was laid in April of 1888. So the house was built before that. It was built, the house was here before that.
Okay, where did you go to school?
I went to school at Columbus City High School.
Okay.
And
how did you get there?
Walked. Either walked or went when it rained and a storm, king buggy.
So about how far is that?
It's 1.5 miles.
Okay.
The reason for that was my district was at the Knoll Schoolhouse, which was right across the field, but the trustee told my dad he would pay the tuition for me. I think it was $150 or something like that a year for me to go to school if he would furnish my transportation, and he did. He furnished a good pair of shoes.
Okay.
And my sister and I, we walked every morning and night back and forth unless it rained, and then we were picked up with a horse and buggy.
So are you glad you went to Columbus City High School?
I was very glad that I did. I went to Columbus City High School, graduated from there.
So what did you do after high school? Did you start in with your father?
I had a chance to go to business college. I knew the head of the International Business College personally, and he said that he would fund or loan me the money for my education. And Dad said, I tell you what I'll do, Elmer. If you want a farm, I will go in partnerships with you, and we'll start out together. And so this was 40 acres, and then Dad bought another 35, which made 75. Mm-hmm. Then I bought this farm and the Knoll farm at the end of the Dollar Road, which makes 168 acres. And
you didn't buy the whole farm; you just bought the acreage.
And and I farmed all of the Frank's greenhouse farm, and
Now, about what year was this that you graduated from high school?
1933.
33. Now, that was during the Depression?
Right in the middle of the Depression. And
Was it pretty tough for here on the farm?
oh yes, we my sister and brother-in-law. My brother-in-law worked at in the automobile business in Toledo, Ohio, and that closed. And they came here and lived to have some place to
Okay.
live and eat, and but we never had a lot of money, but we never went hungry.
You didn't buy 168 acres, so you bought just partial of the Note farm.
The partial what?
You bought across the road.
Well, that's. I said I owned 168 acres.
Oh, you owned.
Owned 168
So
acres.
you had a big garden, of course, and
Oh yes, this is her end of the thing.
Okay.
She was raised that if you raised enough food that you could can it, you didn't have to worry about being hungry in the wintertime. Helen canned all kinds of food. We lived well. That is in our lifetime.
So what was your wife's role in other ways? Did she ever work in the field?
Oh yeah, she drove the tractor. She milked the cows. Helped milk the cows.
Okay.
When we were married, we milked 26 cows morning and night by hand, and she helped. And then not only that, we had a hired hand that lived here, and she cooked for that hired hand.
Now back then, they had it was pretty common to have hired hands, wasn't it?
Oh yes, they lived right in. You paid them $25 or $35 a month, and you furnished them their room and board,
Okay.
and they lived right with you. And
you had, of course, you had the field work, and someone then had to quit and go do the milk the cows.
oh
and the
yes,
chores.
we had the milk cows. We raised hogs. We raised chickens. The chickens, she gathered the eggs and cleaned the eggs and crated them, and that was her money to run the house.
Okay.
She took the egg money.
And what did she? What do you mean run out and buy the groceries?
Buy the groceries, and it was her money.
Where did she get the groceries?
Johnson Hellauer's grocery store.
Where?
Johnson Hellauer's grocery
okay.
store. Sarah,
In Columbia City?
Yeah, Columbia City. They're at the corner of the line and Van Buren.
It's no longer. Nothing's there now. Is there another?
Yeah, that's
The fabric center was.
There's business in there. Yeah, and
So where did you sell your milk?
we part of the time we sold the milk to a dairy in Warsaw. Then we changed, and Cliff Fromm ran the Riverside Dairy. Then we sold it to him.
Where was that?
That was where the Big G restaurant is now.
Okay, by the river.
River, yes, the Riverside Dairy.
Okay.
Then we quit that, and I've got a big built-in icebox down in the basement where we cooled the cream, and we went to separating the milk, and we churned butter, and we sold butter, all the butter, to Johnson Hellauer's grocery store, and that's where they got their butter, part of their butter to sell.
How did it get from here, the milk from here to a dairy? Did you take it in?
No, they came and delivered. They came and picked it up. They picked it up, and
where did you get the feed for the cows or the pigs?
we raised it.
Okay.
We raised it, and we took the corn and oats and mixed it, and then added supplement.
Where did you
Farina.
Where did
Farmer's Elevator, where Gene
Okay.
Byers had the Farmer's Elevator.
Okay.
and that's, and then of course the first year that I was married, I made 99 loads of hay, wagon loads of hay behind a hay loader, and we filled the barn.
Loose hay.
Loose hay. Loose hay.
Okay. Where did you sell the hay? Did you sell it or use it all?
Oh, we use it all.
You-
We had
okay.
we fed everything. You see,
Okay.
you had to feed hay to horses,
All right.
and you raised a different hay for horse than you did for the cows. You raised Timothy and for horses, and clover and alfalfa for cows.
Better for the cows. Better stuff for the cows.
You raise different hay, and so you usually raised corn, oats, wheat, and had hay, and
Okay.
and
And then you had pasture.
yes,
the cow.
and then you had a pasture field.
Yeah.
You had, see if you'll notice, my railroad irons are all still around them, but there's no fence. I put in all the railroad irons as anchor posts so the fences will stay tight.
When did you get your first tractor, and what was it?
Now you're getting into the real story. I got my first tractor in 1940. It was a B Farmall.
Okay.
I paid $835 for a brand new tractor, 2-row cultivator for it, and let's see,
This was a red tractor?
red. I've got a B Farmall down here in the garage. It's not the same one, but I've got the same kind of tractor right down there. I've still got one, and everything. And I've got the 16-inch plow, tractor plow. The 3 cost $835, brand new.
Where did you get it?
From Trier Implement.
Okay.
Trier Implement. And
When did you get rid of the horses? And
okay, now this is a story for people to really realize how agriculture has changed.
Mhm.
From the time Jesus Christ was born until 1940, agriculture changed very little.
Mhm.
In 1938, when Helen and I were married, we farmed this 80 acres with 6 head of horses and 3 walking plows. 2 head of horses on each walking plow, 12-inch plow. And then we had an 8-foot disc that we put 6 horses on to disc the land.
Mhm.
And then at that time we thrashed the grain with the thrashing machine. We cut it with a binder, shocked it, and capped the shocks. And
You didn't do this by yourself, though, did you? You had lots of help when they were threshing.
we exchanged help. The neighbors, we all went together. We'd get so many teams, about 4 or 5 teams, wagons. They would have so many that would pitch the bundles to the person on the wagon, and then they would take it up to the thrash machine and put it in the thrash machine, and separate the grain from the straw.
Mhm.
You either put the straw in a stack, or sometimes we would put it in a mow for bedding in the
Mhm.
wintertime. And so you had when you thrashed, you had about 3 men that handled the grain that came from the thrashing machine, and either put it in a wagon and then went and put it in the granary, or you put it in sacks and carried it on your shoulder in the granary,
Okay.
a sack at a time. You just went back and forth all the time, all day long.
Who owned the threshing machine?
Eli Wolf.
So he just went from farm to farm.
Farm to farm,
Okay.
and so then at that time, after 1938, and until 1938, soybeans were not raised; they were just starting. And after soybeans became more prevalent, then the combine at first we made hay out of soybeans, and
You didn't use the soybeans?
no, we fed it as hay to the cattle.
Okay.
And you broke more fork handles pitching the manure out of where it all strung together, and so that didn't work too well. So then the combine came in.
Yeah.
And then when the combine came in, more people got combine, then you couldn't get help thrash. So we quit the thrash machine. Now, my first combine was 42 inches wide.
It's like today's lawnmowers, right? About the same size.
Okay, 42 inches wide. It was an international harvest. I paid $500 for it. And I took one row of soybeans. We planted them, and see, at that time we planted corn in 40-inch rows because the horses' rear end was that wide, and when we went down to cultivate, you had to, as it got higher, we had to get down the row with the horse.
So there were a lot fewer plants per acre then.
Oh yes, and so so I put my corn planter to 38-inch rows and planted beans in 38-inch rows. Then with my 42-inch combine, I took one row of soybeans back and forth.
Okay.
Okay. Then I got rid of that and doubled my capacity. I got a 52-inch new combine, international harvest, paid $750 for it. Okay, and then now my neighbor just bought a new combine, 35 feet. This field of beans you see down along the road here, that's 120 rod long. One round and back takes better than an acre and a half. One round, acre and a half, and it cost over $300,000, and for that's that and the corn head, and
A lot harder work back then.
it was what?
A lot harder work.
Oh yeah, everything was manual. The thing that really made work easier was when the hydraulics came in on tractors, and they put loaders and hydraulic equipment on tractors where you didn't use manpower.
You mean you could lift? What were the what did that help do?
Well, you didn't have to pitch manure with a fork to clean your barn.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like a front end loader.
Yes,
you could, and then dump it.
That took the manual labor out of farming, and now when you planted corn, we had a 2-row corn planter, which cost around $225. I just helped Cop down here, the farm supply, last year unload a new planter that planted, let's see, 42 rows of corn. That is 7 inches with a 30-inch center, and was $245,000, and it took $20,000 to fill the corn up with seed, the planter up with seed corn the first time. So you see, we used half a bushel of seed corn in each side of the planter, and you see.
Was there a time back then when you could save your seed and use it instead of having to buy it?
That's when we shuck corn by hand, and as you shuck it down across the field, you come to an unusually nice ear. You put that in a sack.
Okay.
And then you saved enough of that kind of corn to seed for the next year. Then before spring, you took seeds out of those ears and put them in, you took a blanket, a piece of blanket about that wide and maybe 10 feet long, and you put seed corn like this. And then the ears that those grains didn't sprout right, you threw out.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean, yes.
You see, so that you knew.
Okay.
This you did all by yourself, so that every ear sprouted a strong sprout.
Okay.
And it's agriculture. A farmer did almost everything himself. He didn't have the conveniences. Now from 1960 to now, agriculture has technically changed beyond anybody's comprehension. We farm from the satellite in the sky now.
That guides, what does that do?
Okay, the sprayers that they have now are about better than 6 rod wide, and when they go across the field and turn around, they've got computers on these tractors that computer on the satellite in the sky will keep them within 2 inches of where they come back, so that they don't lap or miss anything.
Okay, were there things about life, like when you first started farming, were there things that were maybe even better then? Was life in some ways better back then?
Well, the family lived together. We, your entertainment, we didn't have a radio until 1926, and before that, my mother played checkers, dominoes, and around the light in the evening on the kitchen table, and we all were lived together, and we all worked together.
The whole family.
The women, even up until Helen's time, Helen drove the tractor for me a lot. She'd get the ground ready, and I'd drive with another tractor and do the planting. Mm-hmm. And that we were a team. That's one thing about Helen. We were a team, and she's been great at that.
Now, was that pretty common back then?
Oh yeah, that wasn't uncommon at all.
Okay.
Yeah, and then 250, 300 acres was a pretty good sized farm. Now, about 3,000 acres is a minimum of farm. We've got several that farm 10, 15,000 acres in this whole area, and so what I got to start to tell you about these sprayers. My first sprayer was 12 feet wide. Took four rows of corn, and
about when was that?
That was in the 40s when 2,4-D first came out. That was our first. That was a great improvement. We didn't have to hoe thistles.
Okay.
We had to hoe thistles before. You never got done. If it was too wet to do anything else, you had to hoe. And that's one thing I told her when we got married. I'm not going to use a hoe, a mowing size, or a crosscut saw.
Okay, I got a question about your neighbors and the community. Do you think that maybe you were closer, were closer to their neighbors back then?
Oh, there's no question about it. We had Sunday dinners together. The neighbors up the road, we'd go up and sometimes even play euchre
Okay.
and walk back. And each farm house was a farmer. Now a lot of those houses are there, but nobody farms. They were using it as just living places. And so there was no question of what the farmer, even in your church, you were neighbors. You all associated together. You played euchre together on Saturday night and that type of thing.
Was there an what farm organizations did you belong to?
I was president of the Whitley County Farm Bureau.
Okay.
I was president of the Columbia Township Farm Bureau. I was president of the Columbia City Rotary Club.
Okay.
I was fire chief for 20 years. I was a member of the fire department for 45 years.
And did you have some pretty terrible fires?
Oh yes, the first fire that we had in Columbia Township was the farmer's elevator in South Whitley.
Oh.
There for a while, about every few weeks we was going to South Whitley. The other elevator caught on fire. The canning factory caught on fire, and but we were helped. We helped. But our fire department, Columbia Township Fire Department, was started in 1950, and I was Laverne Schrader was chief the first year, and I was assistant chief. But Laverne was auctioneering away all the time, and I was most of the chief all the time. Anyway, so the next year they made me chief, and I was chief then for 20 years. We pump water out of ponds. We had a pump that we carried for the fire truck, and then we carried about 500 gallons of water. And see, until that time, the telephone, when I moved here, was a battery-operated telephone, crank telephone.
Party line?
Party line. It was 13 on the line. And when the fire alarm come in, there was 12 short rings. You knew it was a fire alarm. You went to the telephone. They told you where the fire was. You grabbed your milk bucket and went to the fire and went to the pump, and you kept filling those. You formed a water line, and you couldn't save the building, but you tried to save what was next to it if you could.
Okay.
You got on the roof and poured water down on the roof. That was, and
how did you get to the fire?
We.
Do you have a car?
Yeah, my dad had an Overland, an old 1915 Overland, and we always had a car. In 1950, we had automobiles.
Yeah. What was an Overland?
An Overland was an automobile.
That was way back.
Yeah, that was way back. Yeah, Willie's Overland. Willie's Overland, but it was an Overland touring car, and in the wintertime, you had to take the battery out and put it in the base, put it in the house, keep it freezing up. If you want to go any place, you had to go out and put the battery in.
How fast would it go?
Oh,
roads weren't very good anyway.
25, 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And there was a touring car, and Mom would put us kids in the back seat and cover us up with a blanket when it was cold, and
not much heat.
No, it wasn't any heat.
Okay.
And well, anyway, the fire department has matured into so much more than a fire department. They're more a life-saving element now. They've got to know how to go to people's homes and help them. If in and out of bed, sometimes they're called. All we did was fight fire.
Did you have to rescue anyone from a fire?
we, let's see, I can't, I remember one lady was dead in the house that we went to, but she died of smoke inhalation.
I suppose the use of candles, they made fire more.
Fires, you had shingle roofs, and sparks, you burnt wood, and sparks from the wood, when the roof was dry, would get under those shingles and set the roof on fire. And then we had a lot of chimney fires.
Okay.
And then grass fires. The railroad causes a lot of trouble.
How could that be?
Well, the trains, those steam engines, when they were pulling hard, throwed big sparks out of the flues, and they set the railroads afire, and we had to fight fires along the railroad.
Like the grass?
And set the grass fire, and if you didn't, they got out into the fields.
Okay.
And
now you mentioned your church, your Eberhard Church.
Yeah.
That's a Lutheran church.
That's a Lutheran church.
And that's changed too, I bet. Going to church back, say, when you first were married, things were different back then, I suppose.
Oh yes, I taught Sunday school for 50 years.
Still go there?
Yes, we still go there. We were married there in 1938 with Reverend Beeman.
Is it bigger or smaller now?
It's not the congregation has stayed fairly steady, but the expenses have gone up. That's where the problem is.
Okay.
And it's a nice rural church. We have a clothing bank now that we give clothing away to people and look after people that are indigent or need help, and it's just a nice rural church. And
now, was there an organization, a neighborhood organization back then?
Oh yes, B.V. Whitney,
the county agent.
County agent started the neighborhood. What was it? I forget what they call it. We were part each neighborhood. We had a park over here on 205 and kept the park up and made it available to people. And then we, well, matter of fact, I've got a plaque out there that made me the best hog farmer in the NEO. NEO is what it was.
NEO, okay.
NEO.
Did you meet regularly?
Oh yes, we met ever so often. And
what would you do when you meet? Did you meet at people's houses?
Yeah, and we did things for to better the idea was to better the community in which you lived. We did an awful lot of work in parks and stuff,
and mostly neighbors.
It was all neighbors.
Okay.
And we also put our names on our buildings, so that was one of the things. Ours was Elmer and Helen Heinley City View Farm. It's kind of peeled off right
City View Farm.
And that was because of the NEO.
Now, I suppose, did you learn things about farming, or was not?
No, that wasn't. It was more neighbors getting together and doing things for to better the community.
Okay.
And
when you were wondering about some problem on a farm, how to do something, did you ever ask the county agent or find things out from the county agent?
I never, as far as the county agent was concerned, I never was too active that way, other than I did go to schools that told you how to progress and do things. I mean, but then that was
Like,
usually at the 4-H, and it,
okay.
it was handled by the extension.
Mm-hmm.
Extension, and so the county agent, he played an important role in his day.
Are you talking about B.B. Whitney?
B.B. Whitney
Was he good at his job?
Oh yes, he was very good at his job, and he was. Everybody knew B.B.
Okay.
And
He was kind of an organizer of a lot of 4-H. And,
yes.
Were you ever in 4-H, or your son?
No, our daughter was in 4-H.
Okay.
We never. I was kept too busy to be in 4-H when I was working. My dad said. See, I never participated in sports.
Okay.
My dad didn't believe in it, and mother didn't either. If you want exercise, we got it, and I had it.
Okay.
I had all the exercise you needed out here on the farm. I had certain things to do, and it was always there. And I had to do it.
Well, when you took over the farm, how did you manage that? Did you bought the farm from your father?
At first, Helen and I and Dad, I and Dad worked together. We farmed on half.
Okay.
Okay, first, and then Dad died when he was 68 years old, and then that left me.
Okay.
With everything, I took over everything.
You just inherited the farm.
Yeah,
then.
well, we bought it.
Okay.
We bought it in 1942.
Okay, before he died.
Yeah, before
Okay.
he died, yes. And then when my mother died, then I bought my sister's half of the farm over here at the end of Delaware.
Oh, okay, so you had a sister.
You see, that farm over there also is in the family.
Okay.
My grandmother was a sister to John Beckles' wife, and he wanted to keep it in the family, so he came to Dad and wanted him to buy it, and he bought it. And then I bought my sister's half when my mother died.
What, as you think back, what people did you really like over your life that you met here in the county, or that you admired?
Well,
does anyone stand out?
Ralph Gates was an awfully close friend of our family, the governor. Ralph's boy, Bob, and his sister, they came out here for Sunday dinner, and that's where I got involved in all the things that these did. See, I was president of the Columbia City Planning Commission for 12 years. I represented the farmer in the 2-mile jurisdictional area for 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so through the Gateses, and there was, the cops up here came in here from Kokomo in around 1957.
Was his name Harold?
Harold Kopp.
Okay.
And we became real close. We've looked after each other ever since then. And now the kids are looking after Helen and I.
Now,
and they're very dependable.
I understand you go for coffee at the cops.
Every morning.
Every morning?
Every morning they come down and get me. I can't drive anymore.
Okay.
And every morning at about 20 after 7 they drive in here and pick me up, and there's during the week there's anywhere from 3 to 4 of us down there. David Kaiser, Harold Myers, myself, and sometimes Randy Reimer and John Bucher, the telephone man. And then on Saturday morning, they're as high as 13 down there. We've had the governor down there. We've had Dillon down there quite a few times. And Dan Leonard was down there in the last 3 weeks.
What kind of place is it that you go to?
It's right down here at the...
Is it implement?
The implement business.
Okay.
They have a round table. They furnish the coffee free of charge, and cookies from Grandma's Bakery, and cake, and it's all free. Matter of fact, we had cookies this morning with coffee, and at first it was known as the Liars Club, and I didn't think that was sophisticated. I didn't like that.
This was a long time ago, maybe, or
when it first started, and up until recently. And I said, this isn't sophisticated. I said, let's change this. So we had the Grandma's Bakery, better than Grandma's Bakery, bake a cake that says the Table of Knowledge. And we dedicated now that as a Table of Knowledge. It's no longer the Liars Club. And you can be surprised what we can learn around that table.
So you're pretty happy that you stayed on the farm?
Oh, yes. I never regretted it.
Okay.
We did fairly well economically. My dad had an 8th grade education. He went to the Pennsylvania schoolhouse over there in Hell's Half Acre, 8th grade. He understood economics and he understood arithmetic, and he taught me that. And Helen came from a family with the same background, and we were able to manage quite well. And
did she come from a farm family?
Oh yes, Helen came from, her folks lived on a farm all their life.
Okay, in Whitley County?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add to all of this that you can think of?
Well,
when they did away with the threshing machine,
well, I said that. I said
we organized a neighborhood euchre club.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was in operation, I expect, 65 years.
Well, Elmer, thank you very much for sharing your life and your stories.
And for me, it's been a great life. I've enjoyed everything I've done. I've actually enjoyed doing, and I had a wife that went right along and helped.
With Elmer Heinley's wife, Helen Jackson Heinley, and what was it like being married to Elmer?
Well, it's been quite an experience.
Quite an experience.
I never knew what he's going to say next.
Okay.
But it's been a delightful life. Really, when you sum it up, I think we've been a pretty good team.
Okay. You grew up in Thorn Creek Township, did you say?
I was born in Thorn Creek Township, but I really grew up in Columbia Township.
Okay.
Eventually, I did move to Washington Township for about 1 year, and then I moved to where Mike Myers now lives.
How did you meet Elmer?
Through a classmate.
Through a classmate?
Yes. We were walking down the street
In Columbia City.
in Columbia City, and he was with Bob Brawfer, and Bob Brawfer had dated a classmate of mine, and Bob asked Pauline to go, and he asked me to go. We went out to Tri-Lakes to the dance hall. And it was a famous band, and I can't tell you who it was.
Did you dance with him?
I don't know.
Yeah, you did.
And
We didn't dance real well, but we got it done.
all I know is I graduated from Washington Center, and I had graduated from International Business College,
Okay.
and I had a new job, and I had a purple hat on. And I thought, well, that isn't a very nice combination. Men don't like purple hats. So I took the hat off and didn't wear it the rest of the evening.
And he asked you out again then?
Yes, and we went together ever since.
Okay. You went to International Business College. Where was that?
Fort Wayne.
How did you get there?
Well, my uncle took me over mornings to the college,
Okay.
and then I also lived in Fort Wayne for a short time with a family in Fort Wayne on Pemberton Avenue, and then I had a chance to live with one of the girls that went to International Business College, and we were both in Dellingers, lived in Dellingers upstairs. We had a room, just a room, and I was allowed to cook in her kitchen.
Well,
and I got through that way rather cheaply.
why did you go to business college? Did you have plans for the future?
I didn't have a chance for any business experience at Washington Center. There was no typing, nothing, no shorthand.
Oh, I see.
No shorthand or nothing like that. But I didn't stay in the business world too long. He wanted me to come out here and be his wife. And,
I'm sure you made use of what you learned in the farm business too.
well, he keeps all books. I offered to, but he said,
Okay.
I want to know what's going on, and I want to do it. So I didn't argue with him. I had enough to do anyway.
Okay. Now, did you do the garden?
Yes.
You were the one that
And
worked.
help mow lawn and all that.
Okay. Well, and you did a lot of canning, I suppose.
Well, the first year I couldn't can enough stuff.
Like what?
Anything I could get.
You mean like beets and corn and?
Yeah, not corn, peas and green beans and vegetables, pickles and rhubarb and peaches and pears and plums and raspberries and blackberries and anything.
Did you have some fruit trees, peach trees, cherry trees around?
Yes, and I cleaned them.
Okay.
Take things off of them.
Well, now when you had your children,
We just had one girl.
one girl, okay.
Precious girl. She's a big help now.
It was kind of difficult when you had a baby to work on the farm in the garden.
Well, Elmer's mother was very good to take care of Sandra when I was to work in the field.
She lived near here.
Yeah, over on 205.
Oh, okay.
Before you get to South Park Cemetery.
Okay.
And
What did you do for fun back then?
for who?
Fun for entertainment.
Well, I belong to Walnut Corner Club over 70 years now.
Okay.
And I later joined Extension
Homemakers.
Homemakers, but that was quite a little bit later. And
Okay.
I've been in there 50 years.
Okay. What do they do?
Uh,
Meet regularly?
which
Homemakers.
well, we have lessons every month,
Okay.
and that we meet every time we meet,
Okay.
and fellowship and
Okay.
help at the 4-H and that
Okay.
type of thing.
Now, did you go to the fair every year and enjoy the fair?
Yeah, I enjoyed the fair.
Okay. Did you ever work at the fair?
Yeah.
Yes, I worked there, helped in the kitchen and helped serve.
Okay. Probably for a lot of years.
Yes, for a number of years.
And did you?
Then we had this euchre club that was very interesting. We met once a month. We had supper about 11:30,
Okay.
and we just had a lot of fellowship and fun.
So you really had the two of you, a very busy social life.
Oh, yeah.
Then when I was 50, I had both my mother and my stepmother, my mother and my mother-in-law in the hospital at the same time, and I was kind of depressed. And I
Okay.
thought I need to do something I've never done before, so I went up to the Lutheran Church uptown and to a meeting of the Art Guild. What was turned out to be the Art Guild.
Okay.
They were painting, and so I was in the original Whitley County Art Guild,
Okay.
and I
You
started.
think it's her doing?
Are some of these paintings yours?
Yeah.
Yes, the
On the wall?
one there behind her is my sister's painting, and it's the first one, and it kind of inspired me that maybe I could do something like that. That looked like fun.
And so
And
you.
the first meeting I went to, we were to paint. I sat there and I had to borrow all my supplies. I was so scared I didn't touch it, do a thing. Went home and I thought, well, that would look like fun. And I tried and I did what they first told me to do. I got along kind of a lot better than I thought I did. Would, and finally went back. The time I went back the next time I started again, then I think I drove everybody nuts because I said, no, what do I do next? No, what do I do next?
Okay. On the farm, you know, you had a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
What things did you like to do on the farm?
well,
What things you liked best?
I liked the artwork, to do the artwork. Not that I was so good at it.
Did you enjoy the garden and working in it?
Yes, and I enjoyed working. I had a lot of flowers that I don't have now.
A lot of flowers. Like what kind of flowers way back
Well,
early?
there were a lot of annual flowers.
Okay.
And then, I had hollyhocks and, a lot of different things. Pinnies and poppies and
Okay.
and
And did you drive the tractor at times?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I drove a tractor many days.
Okay.
I'd drive up to the farmer's elevator and sit there and wait for him to empty 2 loads of wagon, 2 wagon loads of grain. Maybe I'd have a coke batch with me. Or I'd have the Reader's Digest and travel all over the world with it.
Okay.
I think it'd be interesting to tell him how much you lived on when you went to International College a week.
25 cents.
25 cents.
Well, brought food from home.
You brought
And
food.
it would buy a loaf of bread and a half a pound of cheese.
Okay.
And that was my lunch. Otherwise, I had potatoes and little meat and stuff I brought in cans from home.
And did you feel happy enough doing that?
Oh, I was real happy. I thought I was awful lucky.
Okay. People wouldn't feel that way now, would they?
Well, maybe I didn't just exactly feel that way at that time.
But it sounds like you both.
Yes, I appreciated it because I knew that I got all that there was to get, all that was necessary.
Okay.
And happiness comes in being contented with what you're doing.
Okay. So you really actually grew up working on a farm. And,
Yes.
And
Well,
did you have brothers?
No, I have a very precious sister, 3.5 years younger. She's now deceased, and so is her husband, Mr. and Mrs. Dwight Robbins.
And
Eddie Louise Jackson, married Dwight.
so you probably, your work on when you grew up was, you know, like things like taking care of the chickens and that sort of thing, right? Well, thank you very much, Helen, for sharing your life and your stories today.
Most welcome. I'm sure it's been an interesting life to me, whether it is to you. Back here is a picture of Grandma's hobos that I painted that you might be interested in looking at.
Now, were there some interesting people in town that you remember meeting?
Oh yes, they're all interesting. I'm always interested in people.
Any that you remember, from hobos to wealthy people,
Well,
or
I remember Rosebud Slim.
who was that?
Well, he was a hobo that always had one pant leg rolled up and painted roses on mailboxes.
Rosebud Slim.
Now, what stores did you go to? Like when you wanted to buy a dress?
Come city, I went to Lorber's
Lorber's.
and to down there next to the Whites. I don't know what it was called, but I always found my way there.
Okay. And Lorber's, was that just a woman's?
Blumenthal.
Oh.
Later years.
Okay. And dresses back then were probably very cheap.
I made this
You made your own clothes.
sometimes. I did a lot of embroidery work and
Where did you get your medicine back then?
Dr. Linville was our doctor, Dr. Ben Linville,
Mm-hmm.
and
Did you have to go to a drugstore to get medicine?
yes, sometimes. Well, my dad always went after it. I don't.
Okay.
But
Where-
I know
Where would you get your pots and pans and things like that in Columbia City?
Well, Rawford,
Ruffers, that
or
was,
Ace Hardware.
okay.
uh,
Before that, Ruffers mostly.
Let's see, there was a Sears in Montgomery Ward, I think, in Columbia City at one time.
So, on holidays like Christmas, did you have a big family get-together when you were growing up or early in your
Yes,
life?
there was always Christmas. Grandpa Jackson's had Christmas dinner. Grandma Miller had Christmas dinner. And
And you exchanged gifts, did you?
yes, we always drew names and
Okay.
whatever. That's the way. My great grandmother always lived with my grandmother that I can remember.
Mhm.
And she had a flower garden that she worked in, and I think that's one reason I just kind of inherited a desire for flowers.
Okay.
They
Did you do anything special on Easter?
always at church, except when I had measles or chicken pox. I forget which it was. Chicken pox, I guess. I had to miss Easter Sunday.
What church did you go to
Eberhard.
when you were growing up in
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, it sounds like you've had a very nice life, and I appreciate your telling us about it.
Well, I did give to the hospital a picture in memory of Dr. Ben Linville, Dr. John Langar, and Dr. Thompson. And it was so close after I first started painting, I said I don't want no publicity on it. Because I didn't think it was be good enough for credit.
Yeah.
And I got it back 25 years later, and it's one out there hanging on the wall. And in the meantime, they'd asked if they could do a little change on it, and I said, sure, if you want to change it, that was your privilege. And they did change it, and they was going to use it for when they remodeled the last time, then they didn't. It's all right with me, because they had something.
Do you think people were more honest on the whole back then?
Oh,
Better character than now?
I don't know whether they were. I think everybody tries to be honest.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just like to think that.
Okay.
I know we don't, if we make a mistake, it isn't going to be wanting to or trying to.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Helen.
If you, a year ago, I was asked to come down to Cobb's Farm Supply, and when I got down there, there was 40 people down there, and the governor, and he gave me the Sagamore of the Wabash, and which is very seldom given for what I had done in my lifetime in the community.
Sounds like you deserved it.
It's right there on the corner, the picture of the Sagamore is there on the,
It's
on the
around
other side.
On the other side.
Oh, on the other side of the wall.
Side, yeah. And I got a picture of the governor giving it to me there below.
Okay, thank you.